welcome to Study Abroad for Dummies by Dummies. I'm your host, Erin, and these are my homies, Riley and Amber.
Hey guys.
Hello, guys.
Hi. I'm Riley.
I'm Amber.
Awesome. Today we're going to kind of talk about a little bit about how we each of us chose to study abroad, and what steps we took to get to where we are right now, which is a foreign country.
In the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere. With lots of cows and sheep.
Yes.
And no AC.
And no AC.
So I think we're going to first kind of just go over, the decision of even coming here. In terms of motivation, I think personally for me, I was looking for a lot of personal growth, especially after the COVID lockdown. I think that I needed to, get out of the house, do something.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I was stuck on the East Coast for way too long. Hadn't left the country in years. So
same.
I think a little bit of growth, getting out of Philly in the summer would have been nice.
For sure.
So for me, I've never gone abroad before, so this was a big decision for me to even, go through TSA to even come here. Also because I'm almost a senior, so I'm over here to look at graduate programs and, do research in things that I want to do past undergrad.
Yeah, I had only been abroad once before this, and I didn't know anybody coming into this trip, so thankfully, I feel like I clicked pretty well. Me and Erin share a birthday.
Yes, we
this
do.
Tuesday.
And our friend Fabi.
Yes.
Our friend Fabi that we also came here with, we all have the same birthday.
Yeah.
So we're very excited to celebrate that together. I think another thing, you can consider, and, maybe this is just for my major, but it's also, taking advantage of the university opportunities. I know at least at the university that I go to, there's a lot of opportunities for business students to study abroad, as there's a lot of international opportunity in that. And also just, a resume booster. I can't tell you how many times I've used my study abroad trip as a talking point in an interview.
It looks so good, and you can talk about so much, too.
Oh, yeah.
And especially, now since we're over here, and, you've had interviews over here, we can talk about it all the time, and, yeah.
Jumping off of that, I'm not a business major, and our university does not have a lot of opportunities for STEM majors to go abroad. So I'm taking classes right now that would not contribute to my major, and I'm enjoying every aspect of it. It's just an interesting time, although it is all of my free credits to be here.
So you're covering everything at once.
Yeah,
it's kind of nice.
It's definitely, when you're selecting your program, that's definitely a really big consideration that you need to make is your major requirements. Can you afford to take this time off of classes? Do the classes offered have anything to do with your major? Do they apply to your course of study? That sort of thing. I'm very lucky. I'm a sophomore going into my pre-junior year, that I have a decent amount of free credits that I can, spend this time, and it's not going to hurt me in the long run.
Yeah. I'm the same way as you. A lot of things, contributed to my, course load, so I didn't really have to worry about the free electives and stuff. But I know someone who was doing the London and Paris, trip, and she had to drop out of her program completely because they didn't tell her that none of her, credits matched up. And so she was basically just going over there and taking pointless credits. So she dropped out, but now she's just taking everything online and is still going to Paris and London. So
Awesome.
For me to get my classes to count, because I didn't have enough free credits to take all the classes that I'm taking over here, I actually sat down with my advisor, and she was able to, pull some strings and get things to count for as a humanities major for me, although at our school that wouldn't have happened if I was taking that class there. She really helped me out, and she really wanted me to go abroad. So she was pulling whatever strings that she could pull and getting things to count for, even my minor, which is, not something that should be counting for the classes that I'm taking.
Yeah, I have a friend who would love to be abroad right now. That was her plan, was to go abroad this year, but she's a biology major like you, Amber, and it just doesn't fit into her course of study. It's not something that's in the cards for her. So obviously when you are choosing a program, that is something to keep in mind. I know at least at Drexel, and I can't speak for other universities, but there are specific trips that are meant for nursing majors, which is a more hectic major. And then there's trips that are, geared for more business majors. And
Yeah, there's
that
a lot
sort of thing.
There are, like, there was a pre-med program for me that was definitely geared towards, bio majors or people wanting to go into the medical industry. Unfortunately, it was canceled, and I was deferred to this program, which didn't have any of the same classes at all. Luckily, I was still able to do it, but I know a lot of people that just couldn't.
Yeah,
make
a
it
lot
work.
of things, like, especially since, like, COVID happened, everything, like, it's always a risk, like, jumping into it. I know that's why I was, like, scared, because I was paying for the deposit and I was paying for everything, and I didn't know, like, if it was going to be worth the risk or not, or if I would even, like, get to come. So that's what I was really scared about, like, because my first trip did get canceled. I was trying to do an intensive course abroad that was a week in Ireland, actually. And it was my freshman year, so it was only available to freshmen, and then COVID happened, so everything got canceled. Lost my, like, didn't get my deposit back, and, like, it was crazy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said, too. If that's, and I think that's why they encourage you in the beginning when you choose a university, that they think about, do you want to study abroad? Because I don't think if I looked into studying abroad any later than I did my sophomore year, because I applied very late to this program, I think I might have not had time and I would have fallen behind. So I think it's definitely, even if you don't plan on doing it this year or in the year after, I think it's definitely something you have to look into.
Yeah,
before.
But also just to vouch on Drexel here, like, they do have an independent study abroad option, which is, like, way more complicated, but it is possible to go abroad independently and take classes for it.
They also have, like, co-ops abroad and stuff.
Right.
They do have, like, a lot of opportunities, but I think, like, you really need to do your research, and in the time that you're, like, even doing your application and submitting everything, for me at least, there were a lot of times that I was like, do I just chicken out and, like, not submit it? Like, I, like, at a certain point, you're like, I don't even know if I really want to go. Like,
Yeah, how far do I go?
yeah, exactly. And it's like, what do I want to do? What am I missing out on, like, in the U.S., like, while I'm away?
I think language was, like, the biggest thing when I chose my program for me, because classes didn't matter, basically, for me.
Yeah.
So it was like I did not want to go to a country where I could not speak the language. And most of the abroad programs that are in non-English speaking countries do have a language requirement. And the only one I could meet was any Spanish speaking country. And I did not want to go to Spain, no offense.
I mean, I knew that coming by myself was already a big step. So coming by myself, not knowing the language, would have been terrifying. So
absolutely.
I definitely opted out of that option and was like, I'm going to go to English-speaking countries.
I'm sure there's people that will greatly enjoy that, like, non-English component and immersing themselves in the language to, like, learn, for me, Spanish, but for other people, other things. But I just couldn't do it, especially my first time going abroad. Like, I did not want to not be able to speak.
It's just like it's an added stress, I feel like, that, especially when you're already taking classes and, like, in a whole new environment. That's just another thing that would stress you out even more, that I feel like is...
Yeah, I think adapting to culture and, the people around you and the city around you, I think, if an added language, like, if that helps you practice, and maybe you have a minor, I know a lot of people who have minors go on trips where they have to speak a different language, that might be really useful for them, but it's also something to consider, Italy might be great, but can you speak Italian?
Yeah.
Obviously that's something you got to think about in terms of all that, if you can handle the language barrier and culture shock at the same time.
And it's also, like, I mean, this is kind of touching on to another episode, but we were lucky to be staying, like, in our own apartments, kind of. I know overseas, like, a lot of different, like, study abroad programs, you're, like, staying with a host family. So if you don't know the language, like, you need to figure something out, how to communicate and stuff. So
I have a friend that's staying with a host family right now, and they enjoy it. They love it so much because the family's actually, does this all the time and deals with languages outside of just English. And they're willing to communicate and sometimes even offer, like, almost like free language lessons and will help you.
Right.
Yeah.
But not for me. Definitely not for me. Also, some programs kind of just leave you to, like, find housing on your own.
Yeah, that's also
I'm
something you
glad
have to
that
look
this
into.
one did not. They handled it, I feel like, relatively well.
Yeah, to clarify, the program we're on included, the fees included housing and, some weekend excursions, and classes. What it didn't include was, food and flights. So that might be something that's Drexel specific, but, other programs I did notice when I was doing research, you are responsible for finding your own housing. So that price might be lower, and might be a more intriguing price point, but there's a lot more work on your end for that.
Definitely a lot more work. I have a friend that's looking for housing in Australia for the fall. She cannot figure it out.
Oh, yeah. So, with all of that comes a lot of, even after selecting your program, you might have, some hesitations, some issues that pop up, especially with COVID. There's a lot going on. I know at least, Riley was saying, there's a lot of program cancellation. I think this is the first, season.
Yeah,
I
feel like it's
first summer that Drexel has sent people abroad.
Yes.
Even our school here, DBS, they were this is one of the first years that we've had, U.S. students come back, which I think is great, but at the same time,
yeah, but it's,
that risk of cancellation.
It's unfortunate when you have everything planned for a program, you have all the paperwork in, and then they cancel it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's frustrating.
You
And then
put
you have
so
to
much
do it
work into
again.
it. Yeah.
So, I only had a week to apply to the new program.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I also had a scholarship to come over here. So I had to notify them that I changed programs and get approval from them that I was even going to now a different country, because I was supposed to go to just the UK. And that was a big process, to the point where I almost pulled my application from the scholarship, because I had one day to tell them that I was changing programs and that I still needed the scholarship money. And they were like, well, you may get the money from us. We don't know.
We don't know, but maybe.
I was like, okay.
You're that's very reassuring.
That's fine.
Thank
I was
you.
like, it's not like you're paying for more than half of my time abroad, and I couldn't go abroad without you. But thanks for the heads up.
I mean, I have a friend whose program got canceled twice, just because of COVID. Obviously, I mean, even flying over here, looking at, do I need a COVID test before I get here? Do I need to show vax cards? Regulations are different country to country, and your university might not feel comfortable sending you to a place that doesn't require vaccinations or something like that, so that's obviously something also to look into.
It's a huge factor, yeah.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
multiple factors. So, the scholarship. Of course, if you don't have money to go abroad, I have to speak a bit about scholarships. There are tons
There's
of
a lot of
scholarships
opportunities. You got to do your research
come
early,
abroad.
though. Just, be on top of it, I think.
So, Gilman Scholar is what I have, and that's, the biggest one in the U.S. for, first-gen students trying to go abroad. But you have to start the application fairly early on. But if you get it, they pay for basically everything. But, with that is, more COVID restriction requirements, because now you have to face the U.S. requirements, also your host country requirements, and then your university's requirements. So there's, 3 people that could shut down your program at any time.
Yeah. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and I know one of the biggest things that kind of was, holding me back a little bit was part of your application, you have to get a teacher recommendation, and all of my professors were from COVID, because as soon as my classes ended online, I was in co-op, and then I applied for my program. So I didn't really have any close professors, because everything was the black screens and just your professor talking for 2 or 3 hours. So I didn't think that I really had a huge connection, but I did reach out to my one professor who I just enjoyed his class. That was the only class online
exactly
that
what I did too.
actually enjoyed. And I was just hey, I know you don't know me, but this is what I want to do. Do you think you could write me a recommendation letter? And he was very supportive, which was great. But
it's really going to help you later on if you start getting letters of rec earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 3 or 4 professors from just my freshman and sophomore years of school that can easily write me recommendations now, which is greatly going to help for programs like this, but also applying further on graduate school or medical school for me. So that's just a general recommendation for college students.
For me it was a lot of employers, just because of COVID. Those were the only people that I really bonded with, because I was talking to them all the time and was working with them every day. But other than that, professors, I just all my freshman ones were like the huge like lecture classes. Like I didn't really feel like I connected with anybody, and then COVID happened, so everything was just like online, and people were just trying to get through class, like not even like paying attention really. So
Oh yeah.
I learned that the recommendation to come abroad actually wasn't even a full recommendation from the person that did it, because it was like almost like a Google form,
It's
and
like,
she
yes.
just did like
Yeah.
one paragraph, and she was
Oh.
like, she told me about it. She was like, it was one question. It was like, did this student express interest in going abroad to you? She's like, I wrote a little bit, and then a little bit why I wanted to send you abroad, and then there was no second question, and I was surprised by that. And she's like,
Yeah, so I think moral of the story is, when you're looking into applying, you need to make sure that you can meet the requirements of the
Yeah.
application.
there's a lot of them, so just do your research. Most of them are pretty easy, but it's mainly just like a couple paragraphs.
Yeah, it's
like
time-consuming, yeah.
questionnaires, and just I feel like just stay on top of your deadlines, because there were a couple
Oh,
times
yeah.
like
I almost missed a deadline.
Yeah,
for
because-
submitting the Drexel side of stuff.
yeah, because there's just so much going on. Like you're in classes or you're on co-op.
Yeah.
If you're in classes, you're probably applying for co-ops while also trying to juggle this. And like I know like I was working part-time at my previous co-op, and then also had like a work study with the Drexel Rec Center. So like I was trying to just like
Yeah,
keep
you gotta keep
everything-
yourself
yeah.
organized, and that's
Get a
that's
planner.
also a good tell of like how it'll go abroad too. Is like if you can handle balancing your time and
Yeah.
applying it to everything on time, then you could probably handle being here.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, and even going off that, I personally did not come alone. I came with my best friend and roommate from home, but I know you two came.
yeah, we didn't know
by
anybody.
yourselves,
Didn't know.
so I didn't. I
Yeah.
wanted to know if you guys could speak a little bit on that for people who are scared to come by themselves.
I mean, I was
YOLO.
really nervous, but I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to do this. None of my friends are able to do this with me. And I was like, it stopped me once before. I'm not going to let it stop me again, because chances are if I don't do it now, I'll probably just like keep pushing it off, and then I'll never end up doing
Right.
it. And everyone I've talked to has said their biggest regret is not studying abroad in college.
No, I've heard a lot of that too
Mhm.
from like even employers.
Yeah.
They wish they went, and even even if my roommate couldn't go with me, I think I still would have gone. I think it would have been harder to adjust, but I think I still would have gone.
I mean, I felt almost more comfortable going abroad alone post-COVID, because more people are comfortable using Zoom
Right.
and like, FaceTime communication. So I still have contact with my friends at home. It's just, there's now a 5-hour time difference.
Yeah, I
So
just
now
did like
have
all my weekly FaceTimes last night. Like,
I had
Oh,
to take
yeah.
that into account.
yeah.
So I can't stay up and talk to them past midnight my time, because there's other people that live with me that need to sleep. So
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think also like even making friends here, obviously, because I can't be glued to my roommate's hip this whole time. I got to make some
Yeah.
friends. I think you got to recognize, everyone else is just as terrified to be here as you are. You're in a foreign country, hop in the pond, if you will,
Yeah.
and and you are alone, and you're American, so we're a little bit different than other study abroad students who
Yeah.
live in Europe already.
I mean, we were talking like first night. We both like were crying in our room separately.
Yeah.
Had no idea. Like both like
We were all
homesick.
crying. Like, don't
All
get me
just
wrong,
cry-
I
yeah.
love being here. I love the people I'm here with, but yeah, I was
Yeah.
miserable the
I was-
first night.
Yeah.
I was exhausted. I just collapsed and was
Oh,
out
no.
for 12 hours.
I was tired. I was sad. It was like
I
a
cried
mix
for an
of
hour
emotion.
and I looked
Yeah.
for a flight home. I'll be honest. I looked for a flight home. I was so
I'm
scared.
out of here.
No, yeah, I begged my boyfriend to look into flights to get me home, because I had to adapt. I was scared to be
Yeah.
here, and I don't want people to. I think if you take one thing away from this, I don't want you to be afraid to take that step,
Yeah.
because you know what, you're gonna adapt. There's gonna be some growing pains. You're gonna cry.
It's
you're gonna be
hurt,
upset.
but in the long run, I mean, we're on week 2, and I'm really glad I made this decision. Like,
No,
I'm,
me too.
considering immigration.
You're like, let's leave.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Don't get me wrong. Do I miss my home country, and do I miss
Yeah.
Philadelphia? Obviously, I miss my family and my dogs and my friends and everything. But I think when a lot of people look back in college, and a lot of people told me this, even in interviews too, like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. You know, like, there's so many people who don't do this. I think I was speaking to somebody at the Drexel Study Abroad office who said, you know, less than 25% of Drexel students take advantage of the study abroad
Yeah.
program.
Lower than that.
No, I'm sure it
Yeah.
is. You know, so it's a very unique experience. And, you know, if you don't do it now, you're going to look back in 20 years
You're
when
gonna regret it.
when you've got a baby on your hip and you're like, man, I should have went abroad when I could.
And now you can't
you know?
travel. Like,
Oh, exactly.
yeah.
You know, so I think if you take anything away from it, it's like there's going to be some growing pains and you're going to be sad for a little bit, but
Yeah.
you'll always figure it out. I think that's what I always tell myself is
Yeah,
you'll figure it
it'll
out.
work out in the end. And I think Drexel also, it has like a lot of programs where
Mm-hmm.
the length abroad like varies a lot. So we're 5 weeks in Dublin and then 5 weeks in London. But there are other programs that are like 2 quarters, like a whole
6
A whole
months.
6
6
months
Yeah.
versus, or you could do a year abroad. Like, they have a lot of opportunities, and I think that people get freaked out thinking that they have to go for a certain amount of time. And it's,
Oh, yeah.
if you look into it, like, they have intensive courses abroad, which are only a week.
Yeah.
And
I mean, one of the reasons I was really comfortable with the dual city program we did was because I was like, if I hate it, I only have to be there for 4 to 5 weeks before
Yeah.
I move on.
Exactly.
You know, and I like, you could do anything for a month.
Mhm.
You know, you can deal with anything for a month.
I just like the
Exactly.
idea of saying that I'm in 2 different places for my study abroad
Oh.
Yeah,
experience.
it
Like
sounds
that's
cooler.
No, agreed. But I felt like, you know, I was like, if I
Yeah.
hate Ireland or if I hate London, I only have to do it for 5 weeks,
And then you'll be home.
and then I'm
yeah.
good. You know, the time's gonna fly. It'll be over before you know it.
Yeah.
The growing pain is temporary. And I
It'll
think
pass.
just, you know, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add, but switching gears a little bit, just for me personally, I have type 1 diabetes, and I know a lot of other people who have, you know, a little bit more of an extensive medical issue going abroad. That's a concern, you know, in terms of managing your diabetes with the time difference. You know, like, I didn't realize until a weekend that I had to change the time on my insulin pump to make sure the intervals that I was getting insulin were lining up to when I was awake. You know, and there's a lot to go through, you know, just like the airport, like getting
Yeah.
through TSA with all my medication, packing the medication, getting the medication in advance, you know, fighting with the insurance company. Like, I need this stuff in advance. I know this isn't when you want to send it to me, but
But,
I
like,
can't,
yeah.
I can't get it when you want to send it to me.
Mhm.
You know, getting my psychiatrist to send my antidepressants 3 months in advance, you know, that was a battle. So if you're going to go abroad, that's also something to consider. Like, are you ready to fight
You got to do a lot of planning.
fight.
a lot of planning? I mean, 3 months worth of insulin. I have an insulin pump, a CGM. I have, you know, I have different medications. And then when you have all that technology, and then you have the backups. So
Yeah.
then I have backup medication if the pump dies, or I have backup meters if the CGM stops working. And you have to bring enough of that to sustain you for at least 2 weeks
Yeah.
in case no one can get anything to you. So that's, I mean, and that's, I know it sounds a lot scarier than it is. You know, I've gone abroad before. A lot of insulin pump companies will send you a loaner pump in case one pump dies, and it doesn't work anymore or something like that. But it's definitely, you know, a hesitation that I had. Like, is that even
Yeah.
possible? My mom is a nurse at CHOP, and I love her, but she's a little bit of a hoverer. And
Helicopter mom.
exactly, just a
Yeah.
little bit, you know,
They're just
especially
worried.
with
They're
my
just
type
worried.
1.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, that was a hesitation. Like, is she even going to let me go? Like, is this something that I'll even be able to do? So, you know, even getting into the country, you need, like, letters to get in here and all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's just something that is to be considered. But I also just wanted to mention it because I want you to know that I'm doing it right now. I'm fine.
She's alive. You
And it
guys.
should-
I'm alive and well.
Shouldn't stop you.
Exactly. Like, just because you've got a partially functioning organ does not mean you can't go abroad.
Yeah.
So don't let that discourage you.
Everyone can make it work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um
I think the main thing to take away from this is that we're not trying to scare you. We're just giving you everything at once just so that you know, like, the reality of it. Because I think a lot
yeah.
of people, like, you see TikToks all the time and they're like, this is me studying abroad, and it's like all the little happy, like cool sightseeing things. But
Oh yeah.
you don't see that like there's no AC in their apartment, or all like the what's going on like moments. Like,
yeah, like
that
just
happens.
adjusting, and you don't see the ugly side of it, and it's not necessarily an ugly side. It's just something that you gotta push yourself through, and obviously that's growth.
Yeah.
But they don't show that. They show like the pretty scenery and like, oh my god, look at this cool gelato I'm eating.
What's gonna blow up on TikTok, right? So.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you don't see what it took to, you don't see the multiple wrong turns you made.
Yeah.
On Google Maps to find the gelato.
Or your taxi driver taking you the opposite away from your.
Yeah, from your building. You're like, am I being kidnapped?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it, but I think our overall advice is do it.
Yeah, just do it. Just
Don't
take
worry
that
about
first
it.
step. Don't like overthink it, because if you do, you're just gonna end up regretting it.
Exactly.
So just go for it.
Period.
Period.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
I hope you took something away from this.
Well, I'm Riley again.
Amber.
And I'm Erin. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Hope you guys took something from this,
and you should message us if you actually do go abroad.
Yeah.
I want to hear about it.